I have an interesting perspective to share with you today. We have a product which the regulators for GDPR, the ICO, are considering to make us monitors, official monitors, or co-regulators, if you like, for the third sector, because they can't cope with all the breaches. They can't cope with all the chaos that's going on with all the cyber security breaches, the ransomware, the viruses that's going on. So basically, they want consolidators for sectors, and we have been nominated in that space. So I'm going to share some how we go about getting organizations to be GDPR compliant or safeguarding compliant. And hopefully you'll find it useful today. All right. So I should already be sharing my screen, and it shows a graphic. Let me just get rid of this. It shows a graphic of how we visualized when we first started, how we visualized GDPR, right, or online safeguarding. So in the middle here, it's a bit busy, but I can show you worse ones. In the middle, we have your policies, right? So most of you, well, are representing charities. All of you are going to have a website, and most people view GDPR as, regulations you need to have in place and illustrated on your website, which should be a privacy policy, a cookie policy, and a safeguarding policy, along with your terms and conditions. In terms of governance, and we're going to be talking about G.P.S, which is our solution. The G stands for governance. So in terms of governance, you need to have the right documentation in place, which accounts for the law, which is the Data Protection Act. And then there's a couple more acts that have come along. And then those acts break down into regulations. So basically, all the documentation needs to be on your website, which mitigates all the risks from having personal information stored in your charity online. Now, traditionally, this was handled by a lawyer, right, or a legal representative. Any of you that have been around since the beginning of the Data Protection Act 2018, you would have probably hired a legal consultant, somebody that has been trained in the law, because you've got to go through each article. You've got to go through the law, literally go through each article, and then say how we as an organization are going to accommodate that requirement, right? How we're going to uphold the law, as it were. And that was fine. It's just that, what you end up with is just documents that only legal people can understand. And if that doesn't get translated to your IT team or your charity hands-on team, then you've achieved nothing apart from protecting yourself if you get sued, because you've got documentation that says, we are adhering to the law. But if you're not implementing what you're saying, you've actually achieved nothing. So where this all started was, as I say, with the legal people. Now, our solution talks about G.P.S. The P stands for privacy or protection, and the S stands for security. And you need all three. You need to have the legal part accommodated. You need to have the security part in place, and you need to have the protection, the data protection part in place. So we've got a toolkit that accommodates all that, and hopefully we'll have time today to show you that and to break it down. But anyway, as you can see here, what you see here, DBS, DSAR, CCTV, copyright, all your policies. If you get any of that wrong, there are fines. So for example, DSAR, which is the worst thing ever, if you do not DSAR is a data subject access request, by the way. And it's something you should have available for your patrons, for your customers, to enable them to request any information, any PII, any personal information you have. They can legally request that you give it to them, and you have 30 days to comply. 30 days. And I'm telling you, that is the most difficult requirement ever to satisfy, because if you haven't built your infrastructure in a way that makes it easy for you to retrieve information at that level, it's the hardest thing to, I challenge people, to to be able to meet that challenge. 30 days. You've got information on emails. You've got information sometimes on WhatsApp group. You've got a database. You might have a CRM. It's very difficult to accommodate that request. The rest of them, copyright, been around for a long time, CCT regulations. I'm not too bothered about those. Okay, now at the top, you'll see PCI, that's payment card industry. They're separate to the ICO, they're separate from GDPR, but there are regulations around that. And you only need to really be worried about that if you're taking payments within your website, if it's all incorporated within your websites. The older websites were like that. Everything was built into one. Nowadays, we call on Stripe or PayPal or one of those payment gateways to handle all of that. And if so, you will have you will be compliant, right? As long as you have that little lock sign on the top of your website, which indicates that you have PCI DSS compliance, then you should be okay. But if your website is older, then there's a whole load of regulations that you need to adhere to from a separate regulator, PCI DSS. And I think their fines are, up to £100,000. So, it's the stakes are high. So at the bottom, we have PECA, privacy, electronic communications regulations, and their fines used to go up. That's all about consent. Pretty much if you want to communicate with people, even if they are in some way or another a customer of yours, you need their consent. So if you say you come up with a new newsletter, you have to, even though they're already a customer, strictly speaking, you have to go and ask them, can we now send you a newsletter? If you want to email them randomly, you kind of like have to ask them, can we send you an email? And if you do not have a consent for every channel of communication, you could be subject to a fine. Worse still, that fine is no longer £500,000. It's gone up to the same as GDPR. So that is a £70 million fine. It's ridiculous amounts of money. But, this is where the world is at the moment. If you think about it, information has doubled, quadrupled, over the last 5 to 10 years. We have, how can I put this? Digital pollution, as it's called, is worse than carbon pollution. So if you think of all the things we're doing to help the planet maintain its green status, if you think of all the car pollution, we've got electric cars now, and all the airplane pollution, digital pollution in terms of depleting the earth of its resources is worse than car and airplane pollution put together. And that's only happened in the last 5 years. And it's getting worse because we video the whole everything. I mean, we're videoing this session now, right? Every day, almost everybody videos or takes multimedia images of whatever's going on, and all that is uploaded. If you are an influencer, that gets cascaded to all your crowd, and it's just ridiculous the amount of information that is stored. So we do need these regulations. We don't need the fine, but we do need these regulations. Okay, so and what you see up here are some of the things that you can do to protect your resources or to protect your customer information, right? Make sure your hardware has got firewalls and encryption and antivirus software, passwords, multi-factor authentication, etc., etc. Backups and restore. Almost never do you come across an organization that takes backups and restores of their information. Even if you don't get hacked into, even if there is no outside interference, technology is not infallible. So what happens when your computer breaks down or your server breaks down and all your data is on there? You've got to have backups. You've got to have backup, and you've got to have a process that proves that you can restore from your backup. Oh, and then, so then there's CRMs and stuff. Now, okay, so I think that's giving you a kind of overview of what needs to be in place and what the implications are. If you choose to ignore it, then this is a typical a typical scenario. You know, this isn't comedy. This is what happens in real life. So we have the ICO is the main regulator. As I say, PCI, DSS are a separate regulator. PECA, again, you can consider them to be another regulator. These are the fines that they charge you if you get it wrong, right? These are the fines they charge you. You know, literally, you'll be going to court, and they'll be throwing all the articles and the laws at you, which is just going to go right over your head. And your defense is going to be basically, I can't make head or tail of it. Or, well, we don't have a CTO. We're a small organization. We don't have a technical person. We don't have a legal person. They'll listen to you and fine you nonetheless. The only way you get those charges reduced from 17 million is if you're insured, if you've got cyber insurance. They normally represent you in court. And I guess if you have well, if you can prove that you have processes in place that make you compliant, right? So if you take care of the G, the P, and the S, your hardware is secured, your data is protected, and you've got all your governance in place. That's how we see it. Hopefully, I haven't scared you guys off too much, but you know, I have to start with the reality. The reality is, you know, there is cyber. The world, the cyber world is just crazy right now, and AI makes it 10 times worse because now an AI could be giving this course right now, and you don't even know that it's fake. You don't even know. You know, you could see your own manager talking to you online, and you don't realize that it's a fake. We're in very interesting times. Okay, so I just thought I would share that graphic with you because for me it sums it up. But I'm gonna go back a step and give you a quick case study before we watch a couple of videos because I know my voice will get pretty annoying to you at some stage. So I'm going to give you a case study of a church. Most of the case studies we've done up until now, even though we're representing the charity sector, has been focused on churches because they are the highest risk category according to the Information Commissioner's Office. So when they looked at our solution, they want to know that it works for the worst case scenario. So here's an organization, you know, here's a typical multi-site church organization. They've got a head office, they've got district representation, and on the right-hand side here, this is how a typical church is broken down. Now, if we look at the head office, right, or we look at governance again, right, most organizations have got HR, finance, operations, marketing, and then a question mark over IT. With churches, there's no IT. With charities, yeah, you'll have somebody that puts the IT hat on, even if they're not qualified. Now, that's the first mistake. So when I talk to people, I say, well, if you do not have a CTO, which is a chief technical officer, or a CIO, then you're not growing strategically. You don't. You've got the tech, but you don't know how to use it. And if you don't know how to use your tech, how can you protect the information that's on it? You need someone who's technical on your board. But if you're small, that's not going to happen. So the next best thing is to get a trustee. And I think this organization helps you out with getting trustees on your board because most of them come for free and they will take the place of a CIO or CTO. So first recommendation is you need someone who's technical to implement protection and data security. But like I said earlier, you also need someone who has a grasp of the legalities or has an appetite to read all the articles of the laws to make sure everything you're doing in reality matches everything that you need to be doing from a legal perspective. Right. So did I cover that? Where's the gaps? Right. Where's the gaps? If you look at charities as a whole, right, most adhere to most are aware of all the regulators that you come across. So if you like, Company House is the first organization that you'll come across. You'll almost all be registered with Company House as an organization. And that's a simple administrative process. If you get it wrong, the fine is negligible, right? They will just write you, continue to write you, and maybe fine you if you file your annual returns late. The Charity Commission, I would have thought the majority of you guys will be registered with the Charity Commission, and they're not too bad either. It's quite difficult being accepted by the Charity Commission, but once you're there, as long as your accounts, and they're mainly concerned about the financial side of running a charity, as long as your accounts meet their regulations, then they're okay. There's nothing to worry about. HMRC, a bit like the Charity Commission, so if you're not a registered charity, then you're more familiar with HMRC. Either way, for gift aid purposes, you will be familiar with HMRC. And even they aren't too severe. If you owe them money, as long as you're not blatantly committing fraud, the worst case scenario is they'll say you owe us 10 grand plus interest. As long as you pay that, you're good, right? But the ICO, the ICO, if you get it wrong, it's a 17 million pound fine. So when you compare the regulators, when you compare the penalties, when you compare what's at stake, I personally think the ICO or the company, the organizations are fair because the stakes are so high. The standard fine is 17 million. You have to negotiate it down, right? And as you see at the bottom there, most governance is handled by your accountant. Yeah, I would say mostly it's done by your accountant, whether you've got an in-house one or otherwise. No one currently handles digital. You might have a data protection officer. They tend to only understand the legal side of things. There's no one that really takes control of digital, and that's a void that needs to be handled. Okay, so where do we come? So we run an organization called Churchgoers Digital, and we started off just being representing churches, but as I say, we're kind of broadening our scope, and we have been encouraged to solve this problem or give our perspective on it. And as I say, our solution is a GPS system, which I'll show you shortly. So if we look at this here, if you look at the compliance layers, it starts off with all the laws. So currently we've got the Data Protection Act. More recently, we had the Online Safety Act, and even more recently, the Data Use and Access Act. And AI is around the corner. That breaks down to a whole shed load of articles that you need to be legal. You need to be a certain type of person to want to read them. In terms of implementation, you implement the law, or you adhere to the law by representing by publishing your privacy, your cookie, your safeguarding, and your terms and conditions on your website or anywhere where your customers can see it. Then you have controllers and processes. So within those policies, you should actually reference, well, what third-party organizations are processing information on our behalf. So you might have PayPal, for example, or whatever organization, as long as they handle personal information. We use HubSpot as a CRM, for example, as if they handle personal information on your behalf, then you need to list them in your policies. And you should also assure the reader of these policies on your website that they too are GDPR compliant, not just you, but everybody you entrust their data with. So in a nutshell, this is compliance, right? It's basically assuring the reader of these policies that you have everything in order, in accordance with the law, but not just theoretically, physically as well. Okay. So as I said to you earlier, we are mandated or positioned to hold a registry of compliant organizations, and we will monitor the sector of organizations that are compliant. We'll hold a register, and that register will be visible to the ICO, but also the British, the BCI, and any other regulator that would like to see this information. We'll make it publicly available. And that helps. We won't hold a register of organizations that are not compliant. We're not whistleblowers. We're only there to say these organizations are using our toolkit, and as such, we certify that they are compliant with GDPR or online regulations. So when the insurance company come along, they'll say, well, okay, that's fine. You know, they've got this in place, they've got that in place, they've got that in place. We can give them a cheaper insurance premium. But if you don't have that in place, then and an incident happens, even if you have cyber insurance, the insurance company are going to come to you and say, well, how was you protecting information? How was you securing information? If you don't have a privacy management system or something that represented a an acceptable standard, then unfortunately they're gonna triple your premiums next year, and they're not going to do a very good job of negotiating your fine down with the ICO because you've basically not done anything. So it helps. So we're trying to get as many people involved to help you guys. As I say, it should mean you get cheaper insurance. Some organization won't even insure you if you don't have some kind of seal. So as I said to you earlier, governance, privacy, and security are the three dimensions that you need to have in your mind. Legally, are we covered? Have we got the documentation? Right, okay. Next, security. What does that involve? That involves an inventory of all your hardware, technology, and how it's protected. Privacy. What does that involve? Another inventory of all the data that you store and how it's protected, how it's private, right? And we'll go into that later. Okay, so hopefully that's helped to visualize where we stand. I'm going to try and flip into something that might help you. Okay, let me show you this toolkit. All right, so we have this toolkit. Hopefully, you can see it now on your screen. And it has the G.P.S, right? So it has the governance, it has privacy, and it has security taken care of, as well as a few other things that you need to have in place, like an incident log and impact assessments, etc., etc. But the three main areas are governance, privacy, and security. If the only thing I want you to learn today is that being compliant involves having an understanding of governance, privacy, and security, then it would have been worthwhile. So as you can see, it's basically a checklist, right? It's a checklist of everything that you should have in place. So you tick it if it's in place. If it's not ticked, then it will be recorded as well as a non-compliant issue. And the idea is obviously to get all of these ticked so that goes down to zero, right? So that's quite straightforward. It'll probably take you 10 minutes to fill this particular bit out. Most of the toolkits you see around can take you days. The ICO themselves have a toolkit and they ask 338 questions. 338 questions. And even if you answer all those questions, it doesn't make you compliant. Even if you do everything it says, it doesn't make you compliant. It's really confusing. Privacy is a bit more involved. I'm not gonna show you all of it right now, but basically, the the privacy bit is where you list your business model. So if you have visitors, if you have members, if you have patrons, if you have public, what services you provide for them. The one we're looking at is actually a church one, but the charity one which we're finalizing this week, won't be that much different. All right. And basically, you have to build a map of all the data you record and under what tasks you record it. I don't say you have to do it, but I'm saying if you build this, it will help you prove to them that you're managing privacy, but it would also help you when it comes to DSAR. Because if somebody says, I need all my donation information, you need to find, well, where do we store all that? And, which bits do we store, right? So that's standard, but then there's financial information and there's sovereign information. And the most important thing is for each of those business cases, you need to state why are you recording it? What's the lawful basis for recording it? And there are 6 legal bases that you can specify, right? Consent being the easiest one to sort of understand. How did you obtain it? What bit of hardware are you processing it on? How is it protected? Who do you share it with? And how long do you keep it? That's all the key attributes you need to have for every single um, business task that you perform within your organization. If you don't have that, you're falling short, right? The, the beauty is that we will provide a one size fits all toolkit that you might just have to customize slightly, but in short, we should have all the attributes that typically a charity organization will hold, but it's very easy to add additional bits or change it if to be customized for your organization. So the last bit is security, right? So here you build an inventory. You can see in the first column, you build an inventory of all the computer equipment that you currently have, or all the technology, basically, from your computers, your tablets, your website, your router, your Wi-Fi, any storage devices. If you are cloud enabled, what your cloud situation looks like. You build that inventory. And then what operating system is running on that hardware? Because because it's possible for you to have a technology that is 10 years old, it's no longer supported by the vendor. That is the most common way that people hack into your environment, because you're running on obsolete equipment that is no longer secure from a it's you're no longer getting updates from the vendor, and therefore people know how it's how to get in, basically how to breach your security levels. So it's quite important that not only you list the technology, but you need to demonstrate that it's still being supported. And then what you see in these columns is how each bit of hardware is protected. Is it password protection? Is it multi-factor authentication enabled? Do you have antivirus software installed? Do you have auto software updates on it? Is there a firewall, etc., etc., etc.? These are the most common ways that you can protect hardware, and all the ways that the regulators give you credit for, all the ways that insurance companies give you credit for. So, and again, it's just a case of ticking which ones you have in place. And then you see here, it works out how compliant, how secure that device is based on the ticks that you have put in place, right? And then finally, it lists who has access to this hardware, right? We recommend up to four types of roles: an admin, someone who does financials, revenue, someone who looks after youth and kinship records, and then someone who looks after the most highly sensitive information. We call that the sovereign identity. So these last 4 columns indicate, right, this role and this role has access to that machine, and C means they've got full control. V means they've got view access, and E means they've got edit access. So if I was an auditor and I looked at this, I can tell whether or not everything is in order. I can tell what you have, whether it's protected, how it's protected, who has access, and how secure it is. And it's just a tick box. So again, this bit should take you an hour to fill in, depending on how big your organization is. But it will help you to be compliant with the regulations, or at least it will tell you what you need to do to become compliant. It will be totally transparent to you, hopefully. Hopefully. So that's our toolkit. I'm going to play a couple of videos now that might give you a bit of context, and then I'm going to invite you to throw some questions at me before we go into another section. And then let me just say that at the moment, the reason why I think it's a mess is there is no such thing as being compliant. When someone says, "Are you GDPR compliant?" they're asking you, "What's your opinion? Are you intentionally breaking the law?" No one intentionally, not many people intentionally break the law, but there is no one place you can go to get GDPR compliant. That's kind of the situation we're in. Some organizations like cybersecurity or cyber essentials, they provide a process for you to certify that you are adhering to all the hardware regulations. So you're so if you look at our GPS, it's the S. They take care of the S, but they don't care about the G, and they don't care about the P. They don't care about data. They don't care about governance. They only care about the hardware. Now, I don't know about you guys, but what do you think is the most important? Put a G or a P or an S in the chat if you like to. If you think you can guess which is the most important, if you protect your hardware but your data isn't protected, is that the best case scenario? Is it just good enough to have the governance in place because that's maps to the laws, or do you take care of your data? Strictly speaking, you need all three. But if you had to choose one, which would you choose? Put a G in the chat, put a P in the chat, or put an S in the chat, and let's just see what you guys think. In the meantime, let me queue up this. Let me queue up this for you because this is an organization called NCSC, National Cyber Security Center. I totally recommend you have a look at this website because they are probably the premier organization. They look after all the government, the highest security government security. That's not to say that the government doesn't get hacked into, but they are definitely an authority on that. If you are on the board of a charity as well, I think some of their information is quite um, digestible. It's quite they break it down into nice chunks. So let's see if we can find something that you guys will find useful here. So they've got a toolkit. Everybody has a toolkit, and most of them just involve you guys answering questions. All right, let's just see what it says here.
The vast majority of organisations in the UK are dependent on digital technology to function. Cybersecurity ensures organisations can operate effectively in our increasingly online world and is central to operational resilience. When done well, cybersecurity is so much more than a compliance function or the implementation of technical controls. You can use it to exploit the opportunities that technology brings, drive your company's agenda, and deliver real value throughout your organisation. It is vital that the board understands the risk that cyber attacks present to delivery of their business strategy, and that the business has adequate cyber resilience to prevent, detect, and respond to cyber attacks. The Board Toolkit is a set of resources designed to help board members govern cyber risk. It enables the board to ask the right questions to gain a good understanding of the cyber risk profile of the organisation. These bite-sized videos summarise the 9 modules of the Board Toolkit that are essential to a cyber-resilient organisation.
Yeah, you see, they do lots of little bite-sized chunks that I find very very useful. All right, let's just share that link in the chat with you guys. So just in case I forget, so this is the board kit for all right, so where are we on our P's? And has anyone added it up? So P seems to be, oh, what? We got G's in there. Are you guys not listening? P's. All right, there is no, you need all three, right? You need all three. There was no wrong answer. G definitely doesn't work, right? Because it's just words. Like, imagine giving your information to a bank, your money to a bank, and all they do is say, well, we're going to protect it, we're going to secure it, but the technology team don't do anything. G can't work for me. Hardware, if you say security, strictly speaking, data lives on hardware, right? If they can't get into your hardware, then there's definitely a good argument to say, well, you know, it's better, it's as good as privacy, but you need all three, to be honest. You know, My answer would be that the most important thing you can do to protect your data, in my opinion, is to encrypt it. I don't know if you know what encrypting means, but it basically takes uh, words. It takes words um, and encodes it so that it's illegible to someone. It's illegible to any human being, right? We have very advanced encryption, internationally recognized encryption routines that even the best computers wouldn't be able to break in a reasonable amount of time. So the most important thing that you can do, um, in my opinion, if you only had to do one thing, is make sure that the device that you store information on is encrypted. Because even if it gets stolen, they can't read it. Yeah. So, but it is an interesting thing, P, S, or the G, but G definitely doesn't work. Privacy, yeah, let's just agree for today. Let's just agree that S is the answer because I'm saying encoding is the way. All right. Do we have any quick questions before I go on? Because I know my voice might be okay. I can't see any questions. All right. Let's carry on then. All right. So um, we have a diagram that might help you guys to visualize this. Let me just see if I can share that with you guys, maybe. Okay, hopefully I'm keeping up with sharing. So let's go if that gets out of the way. Hopefully you guys can see that. Um, so as I said to you earlier, governance, privacy, and security is definitely the way to go. We also advocate that you need to assign roles to different types of information depending on how big your organization is. And the four roles and the four areas we have are admin, restricted, kinship, and sovereign, right? And if you're going to use an organization like ours, then we're saying, well, okay, these are some of the things you need to do. Shadow IT or bring your own device, or depending on what you call it, you cannot contaminate charity information with personal information and vice versa. You can't do it. It's an absolute no-no. Most hackers get into your organization because of the contamination between people bringing their own devices connecting to the church network or you taking or vice versa. It's the first thing that you want to get rid of. Any hardware that is no longer supported, I mentioned that earlier, you need to get rid of that. It's probably the first part of an audit will say, let me have a look at what equipment you're using. Does it belong to you? Does it belong to an individual? Is it protected? How many people can access it? All right. That's the first thing. The governance bit is quite straightforward, because it's just about putting in words as to what measures you have in place. The next biggest thing that you need to do, for me, the two best things that you can do is an inventory of your hardware and an inventory of your data, which is easier said than done. The hardware isn't that difficult, but the data one is, because you've got to go through your whole system and find out what attributes you're storing and under what circumstances. But as I say, with our toolkit, we give that to you so that it's not that difficult for you to do. You just basically have to tick, 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 tick. And then you have to think, right, you've got your hardware, it's protected in this way, in this way, in this way. What about your data? Should financial information be held in the same location as sovereign information or restricted information? The smaller you are, you'll probably find that you've only got one machine and everything's on one drive. But as you start to, have 4, 5, 6, 10 people, then you really need to make sure that each bit of information is segregated. Because even if a breach happens, well, it's only going to affect, worst case scenario, it's only going to affect one part of your estate, not the whole lot. If everything's in one lump, then a hacker gets in or you get a cyber attack, they've got access to everything, your financial information, and they can hold you to ransom with that, or your youth, kinship information, or you might have some sovereign information, some really highly sensitive information. You really want to segregate it just to mitigate the risk if a breach happens, right? So we're saying ideally you should have them on separate machines or separate drives, and ideally they should be encrypted. Now, most organizations, to be honest with you, have just got password protection. They've got a machine and they've got password protection, and one or more people might know that password. If you implement multi-factor authentication, that kind of doubles your protection, right? It's like saying if someone hacks in, they need to know two types. They need to know two things about you. They need to know your email address or your phone number, or vice versa. So multi-factor authentication was thought to be was a very good thing when it came in, because it's sometimes annoying when you have to keep verifying who you are, but it's for a good purpose. So second to encryption, I think MFA or passcodes, which are kind of bit the same, are probably the next best thing that you should have. All right, so that's our overall diagram. I'll send some of this in. I'll make some of these diagrams available to you after this call, because I think it helps to get you to visualize what the situation is. All right, let me close that down now and try and run the last part of this process before we accept questions. So let me just get that ready for you. So I was told that this was a workshop and it needs to be a bit interactive, but it's not long enough for a workshop, and it's kind of too short for well, it's too short for a workshop in my opinion. Our workshops are like half a day. So I'm just going to give you a taste of our GDPR course. All right.
Well done. Thank you for completing this.
All right.
Hello and welcome. Read the following.
Okay.
Information Commissioner's Office, ICO, role. The Information Commissioner's Office, ICO, is the UK's independent authority established to compliance with data protection laws, including GDPR, often requires organisations to register with the ICO. The ICO understanding.
Let me talk you through it, because that voice gets annoying. But yeah, if you do not register with the ICO, then that is a minimum £5,000 fine. Not a lot of organisations do, because they think, well, we're too small. No, everybody, if you're online, you need to be registered with the ICO. You need to be like a very small domino clubs or something like that to not have to register. If you've got people's personal information, you definitely have to register with the ICO. And it's only, well, I think it's gone up now. I think it's £56 for a small organisation. I just wanted to, there's something on here that I wanted you guys to look at. All right, data usage agreements, or now remember I mentioned to you earlier that all the software that you have or you entrust with your personal information, you need to have a GDPR statement from them saying that they are GDPR compliant, and that's normally on their website. But they also have data processing agreements or data usage agreements, and you also need to surface that. In our toolkit, you also need to surface that, because they will have terms and conditions that you need to adhere to in order to use their software effectively. So you need to be aware of that. DSARs, as I said to you earlier, DSAR is the most difficult thing that you may be confronted with. It's quite rare for people to ask for their information, but if they do, you've got 30 days. And if you do not give it to them in 30 days, they can go to the ICO and say, you didn't comply, you're breaking the law, you can get fined. You can get fined. What else can I say? Yeah, there are changes that I want to make available to you as well, but we'll handle that in questions. So these are, what is the main role? Okay, let's just quickly go through this. Okay. There was a video that I wanted to quickly show you guys, which kind of helps, but I'm not quite sure where it is. All right, so we're just flipping through our course, which you guys can get an access to as well subsequently. All right, yeah, this was the bit that I wanted to quickly show you.
Oh, hi, can I help?
Can I have a hot chocolate?
What's the name?
Joelle.
What was the name?
Alex.
Alex. There you go, Johnny.
Cheers.
If you like our Facebook page, we give you a free hot drink and a free pastry.
We have a new like for Damien. We have a new like for Damien.
Hey, Carly, are you standing by?
Standing by. Hi there, can I help?
Yeah, just liked your Facebook page.
Okay, I'll search Facebook now.
I'm searching Google.
Have a phone number.
I've got his email address.
Okay, Carly, are you ready?
For information on Damien.
Yep, I am.
Mother's maiden name is He banks with
Hey, Carly, this is the girl coming in now with the blue scarf.
What's the name? Nicholas.
Nicholas. His date of birth, 7th of May. She lives at 38A.
Just be a couple of seconds.
2 children, age 4 custody. Previous address. She's got the postcode.
Yep, got it. Damien, age 26 and a fitness instructor.
How do you know what that?
Where did you go to UCL? Martin who went to South Thames College. Assistant psychologist at Great Ormond Street.
How did you know?
That is... I don't really understand.
Huh? Pardon?
You know I'm a Christian as well.
Oh, yeah, we know everything about you, Martin. Thank you. Nice to meet you, Anna from Russia.
Right. Okay. So let me stop it there. So I just wanted to show you how easy it is for people, for fraudsters to get into. If you haven't got security, if you haven't got everything in place, how easy it is. That organization is called CFAS, and they go around the country and just basically hack for entertainment purpose. They hack into your information and just show you how easy it is if you don't have the right protocols in place. All right, so I wanted to make sure that you guys have got enough time for questions, and I also need to cover all the things that have changed, but let's just see if you guys have got any questions for me before I tell you what's changed recently from where we were with just GDPR. So if we've got any questions, now's a good chance. Now's your opportunity to fire some at me. And if we don't have any questions, then I'll point out all the things that have changed. Some are good and some are not so good. All right. So any questions, just put it in the chat. Whilst you guys are hitting on your keyboard, what I will say is, all right, in terms of the good, right? I mentioned to you the hardest thing at the moment is DSAR, in my opinion, right? You know, even for someone who has an IT background, which I do have, if I inherited a system and someone said to, and you have no way of searching through all these systems if you had no input in how it was designed. So, and information is spread over emails, it's spread over WhatsApp groups, it's spread over databases, it's spread over CRM, and you've got your day job to do. So imagine being bombarded with DSAR requests from people, and you've got to go and search your entire infrastructure to answer their questions. The hardest thing in the world to do. The good news is that the ICO are introducing monitoring bodies, which we have applied to be. And the monitoring body are an in-between regulator. It means they provide a toolkit and they monitor, and your DSAR requests, right? If the 30 days expires and you haven't, then you raise that with the monitor, and then they then, you know, give them a slap on the wrist and say, right, okay, you know, we're also monitoring the situation. You have maybe another 14 days to answer that request. If after the additional time that you've been given, that request still hasn't been satisfied, then you can raise that with an ombudsman, and thereafter it gets elevated to the ICO. So from your perspective, you've got more time because there's more levels to go through before it becomes a prosecutable offence for not satisfying a DSAR. On the other hand, the bad news is that they have added complaints into the equation. So not only can a customer of yours ask for their information, but they can also submit a complaint to you. So if you haven't already got, and most organizations don't, a DSAR interface or a DSAR form where they can register a request, you now also have to have a complaints form where somebody can complain about whatever it is, however you're handling their information, whatever that might be, they can submit a complaint to you. And again, you only have a certain amount of time to respond. If you don't respond, it gets elevated to the monitoring body. And if there's still an unsatisfactory response, it goes up to an ombudsman, and then it goes to the ICO. And the ICO do fine you, but you can additionally be fined by the victims. The ICO are not the victims. The victims are the people whose information has been breached or whose information you're not providing upon request. So there's two types of people that can fine you, as well as your insurance premiums going through the roof. So you kind of need to understand that it's worth making a some investment in your G and your P and your S, because for me the stakes are too high. You know, the stakes are too high. Right. I can't see any questions. So, all right, let me point out some of the other things that have changed. So the charitable softening. Okay, that's a good one. Before you, for every single activity, whether they're a customer or not, for every single activity, you needed a consent. You needed them to have said, yes, I'm happy for you to contact me by email. I'm happy for you to send me a newsletter, etc., etc. Now, once they become a customer, only charities are given a soft opt-in, which is not retrospective. So any new customer that comes along, as long as you've got a consent for them, then any subsequent contact with them within reason is covered under that original consent. That's how I would explain to it. We talked about the front door bit. We talked about G.P.S. Cookies. I don't know about you guys, but I guess I've become immune to them now. But almost all websites have a cookie banner which says we're storing this information, we're storing that information. If you don't deliberately create cookies, right, and most charities probably don't, if you're only using the default cookies, then if you're creating a new website, you don't need a cookie banner, right? If you already have it in place, I wouldn't remove it. I would leave it in place. But the way the improvement is that unless you are, and by the way, a cookie is an attribute about a personal attribute that you're storing to make it easy for you when they come back on your website. So normally, normally when you go to any form, you'll see that your name and address has already been pre-filled because that's stored in a cookie. But if you're creating any additional cookies that aren't considered standard, then you need a cookie policy and you need a cookie banner. But if you're not doing anything that's non-standard, then you no longer need to have that. I, for one, welcome that. We talked about SAR. Let's just see what else I can mention to you. All right, let me just clarify where we are at the moment. So as I say, there's no one organization at the moment that can certify you for GDPR compliance. That's the void in the process. They've kind of rushed it in. You should just be able to go to that organization and say, right, I want to be GDPR compliant. How do I establish that? Where we are at the moment is the government endorses something called cyber insurance. They look after the security side. So you can become compliant as far as the security side is concerned. And then we have the ICO, the International Standards Organization. They have They also have one for security and they also have one for privacy, but they don't have one for governance. And they cost quite a lot of money. We're talking £10,000 upwards to go and get accredited by these organizations. So going down and finding a toolkit like the one that we offer is probably your best bet. But I should point out that there are alternatives. Even the ICO themselves, as I say, they have a toolkit which won't make you compliant, but it will demonstrate that you have privacy. You're doing your best to manage the privacy of your customers. There's another one called Euro Privacy, and apparently they are well regarded. So apparently it's not that common in the UK, but Euro Privacy takes care of security and they also take care of privacy. But you're talking, 5 figures and upwards to go via them just to get accredited, just to get a certificate that says you're doing everything right in accordance with the law. So you can see that things are a bit of a mess at the moment. And so I do applaud the ICO for taking the initiative to introduce monitoring bodies that can speak to you, that are charity. Like in this instance, I'm a charity. They understand how charities work. They understand how charities can interpret privacy and security in our own terms. So if you build a G.P.S system that is tailored to the third sector or tailored to the charity sector, it makes sense. There'll be ones for the financial sector, there'll be ones for manufacturing, etc., etc. But it's tailored for their circumstance, and so it's a lot easier to digest. All right, let's just see if we got any questions come in. Right, I don't understand. Doesn't cyber insurance just cover you for a fine, or does it make you safe because you have to comply with a checklist in order to get insurance? Yeah, so it's a bit like your house insurance, isn't it? That they'll say you need to have this standard of lock, this BS standard, blah, 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 in order for your insurance to be valid. So you buy your insurance, but you need to fill in, you sign to say that you'll be doing this, and this. And they will give you the insurance, but if something happens, do they pay up? And they'll come and audit you and say, well, we put in our terms and conditions that you should have encoding, you should have multi-factor insurance, you should have password protection. If you don't have all of those things, then they're not going to be paying up. So yeah, they don't issue a fine, but they won't help you out if a breach happens. And certainly your premiums will go up the following year. Is it still the case that company email addresses don't come under the same restrictions as personal ones from a GDPR? Yeah, so we advocate no cross contamination between personal and corporate. So you should not allow anybody in your organization to use their personal email or their personal phone or WhatsApps that is personal to conduct any kind of business or equipment. They can't even bring their equipment into your premises unless they're only doing personal work. They can't connect to your network. Right? If you adhere to our regulations, I'm saying as soon as you allow that, all hell breaks loose, because you can't control what someone does with their personal. You don't even know that they have a virus protector or anything like that. It's the most common ways that they get in through the fact that most organizations do not train their staff, and they give their staff permissions to access corporate estate using personal information. So that's quite a good question there, I think, from Anne. Sorry, I meant sending to company email addresses, not personal ones. As I say, no contamination whatsoever is tolerated between the two. You have to keep personal and corporate totally separate. Otherwise, you're just totally exposing all the good work that you do, protecting it. gets undone by someone who doesn't understand GDPR, doesn't understand GPS. They come in innocently, connect to your network, and that's how hackers get in. It's the most common way is through emails or for unprotected devices. How can teams balance usability and privacy without overcomplicating systems? Well, you know, my understanding, you know, I break things down to G.P.S, right? It's the simplest way to look at it. The governance side is quite easy, right? And the privacy and security bit is quite easy if you're willing to do an inventory. Once you've got an inventory, you can visualize everything. Once you can visualize everything, then you can secure it and you can make it private, right? When an auditor comes in, that's what they want to see. How are you managing this? You can't explain it in words because I showed you the diagram. It's very complicated. It's a very complicated thing. So finding an organizer or finding a monitoring body or finding a product that breaks it down into in my instance 3 simple steps that you can do will make it easier for you to contemplate the task. Securing the hardware is not very difficult. If you want to use Cyber Essentials, for example, securing the hardware is quite straightforward. They will tell you everything you need to do to secure the hardware. To make your information private, again, once you've listed it all, is actually quite easy to do. But the hard work starts with creating an inventory. Create an inventory of all the data, create an inventory of all the hardware, and that's 85% of your work done. Hope that helps. May I clarify? We recently had a DSAR. I'm confident we made the progress clear and responded in the correct. Can't see that word. Should we also provide a link to complain about the process? No. No, sorry. Well, the answer is yes and no. No, you don't have to today, but yes, you will have to by June this year. So by June this year, that regulation comes into play. And so you need to provide a DSAR form on your website and a complaint form on your website. And if so that they can do one or other, they can raise a DSAR request or they can raise a complaint or both. Yes, it is a bit overwhelming. I totally agree. Imagine trying to simplify it, which is what we're trying to do. We're trying to simplify it, and we think our G.P.S approach is the most simplified way to look about it. I think I've got all the questions here. I don't understand. Let me just see if I've got any other questions. June isn't that far away. Yeah, it isn't. I mean, ideally, you don't want to be in a situation where they make a complaint, right? So it's not clear to me what they would complain about. Perhaps if you haven't responded within the time frame or you deny that request. If you think, I guess I should also say that DSAR requests now, they're saying that it needs to be fair and proportionate, or reasonable and proportionate. So you need to make a judgment as to what they're asking for. Is it reasonable for them to be asking for that? If you lose a customer, then they may just want to be a nuisance to you, and they might say, right, I want you to give me this, I want you to give me that, and I want you to give me, and you know, they're not being reasonable, and so you can deny that request. But I haven't got sufficient visibility of why people would be complaining about how you're handling their personal information unless there was a breach. If there was a breach and they knew about it, then yeah, a complaint is their first point of call. And if your response to that complaint is not satisfactory, then that positions them to take you to court. They can say, I trusted that organization with my personal information. They didn't take care of it, and I want compensation. Now, if you have a monitoring system in place, if you have a G.P.S type system in place that the auditors are happy with, that the ICO is happy with, then they probably won't get very far with that court case. Yeah, you're doing everything you could to secure their data. If you have nothing in place and they submit a complaint, then you're giving them the evidence to prosecute you. It's not just the ICO you need to be worried about, it's your customers if they go that far. It's still quite rare for people to ask for DSAR requests. It's getting more common. So I think it will take time before people even realize that they can complain. But, you know, they're unpredictable. You want to have things in place. It should be quite straightforward for you to put that. If you've already got a DSAR, it should be quite straightforward for you to put something in place. If I missed anyone out, question-wise. Somebody's right, okay. Are you guys happy with the information you've got? I will provide some slides which goes into a little bit more depth. I will provide a bit more background, but I'm happy to hang on for a few more minutes and answer questions. I don't really want to go. Maybe I can show you another one of the videos from the that link I gave you, which is the best organization I think you can get guidance from. Okay. Well, I had budgeted for an hour, so I'm gonna try and leave the call now unless I get any other questions. So I'm gonna hang on here. I don't know if Ross is still around and listening, but yeah, as far as what I plan to deliver, I think we more or less covered it all.
Amazing. If anyone has any questions that come up in the next couple of days, once it's all sunk in, then please feel free to email myself and we can pass this over to Paul. And we'll also share your slides as well with everyone, Paul. I will let you end the session whenever you feel ready.
I do simplify. As I say, I run a charity myself, so for me, the whole system. Then there needs to be more organizations like us that help people to become compliant. You know, it's like, well, it's just such a maze. The ICO themselves, they have a 338 questionnaire that you need to fill in, and at the end of it, you're still not compliant. It's like, well, it should be a lot easier. But anyway, hopefully, you know, I've planted a few seeds, and you guys can understand the state of play. With AI, it's only going to get worse. You've seen how many organizations get hacked into, the British Library, Co-op, you know, so many organizations they say nearly 1 in 3 organizations last year was hacked into. So don't take it lightly. Do something. If you haven't already got something in place, do something with the information that you've received today. And, you know, don't get prosecuted. Don't get fined. Don't go anywhere near the ICO. All right. So hopefully that's been useful to you. It's been, you know, it's been a pleasure presenting to you. Hopefully your head is not spinning, and you can, you know, take some of our tips in mind. Hopefully the GPS system makes sense to you. And yeah, hopefully, you know, I won't be reading about you in the ICO case notes, because all the organizations that get hacked into are held in a central register, and you know, some organizations do get fined an awful lot of money. So yeah, it's been a pleasure. I think we can end it here, given that I'm going to send out the more information on the slides and the illustrations. And if I get any questions in the next day or two, I'm happy to answer them as well.